Once it had a name, maybe more than one. Some said it was called Avonridge, back when trains ran and comm towers blinked with data that meant something. Others whispered it was once the Core Sprawl, a city so wired into the old world that when the collapse came, it didn't fall, it froze, mid-thought. Now they just call it the Nest, a scar of concrete and glass that stretches 20 levels deep. Bridges hang like broken ribs over nothing. Streets twist into themselves. Entire districts vanished underground when the supports gave way, turning buildings into catacombs. The storm line that runs through the West Quarter has been pulsing for 9 years. Glowing blue, humming like it's waiting for an answer. Scavengers say the Nest is not dead, just sleeping. Others swear it's awake, watching through cracked cameras and static-choked monitors. But whatever it is, people still come. To pick the bones, to find what's left, to vanish. There are rules, of course, unspoken ones. Don't follow the hum too deep. Don't look at the spirals too long. And if a screen speaks your name, run.
The mother sat in the dim glow of the night, her voice soft and soothing as she rocked her daughter. The air was cold, sharp, almost metallic, and wrapped around them like a warning disguised as comfort. Outside, shadows stirred among the trees, flickering like whispers of something that didn't belong. "Close your eyes, Lune," she sang, her tone warm, familiar, a tether to normalcy. The little girl nestled closer, fingers curled tightly around a frayed stuffed bear. Her wide eyes, half lulled by sleep, flicked toward the window. "Mommy," she whispered. "Shoo. Just the wind." The mother glanced outside, but paused. On the horizon, strange lights had begun to pierce the dark. Flickering streaks of blue and green twisted and coiled like some otherworldly aurora, silent but unnatural. The girl clutched her bear tighter. "What's that?" "It's nothing to worry about," the mother murmured, though a knot had formed deep in her chest. She rocked slower now, eyes fixed on the lights that pulsed like breathing stars. Then a low rumble rolled across the land, distant, alien. The kind of sound that vibrated more in the bones than the ears. The lullaby died on her lips. "Mommy?" The girl's voice was small, trembling. "It's all right." She tucked a strand of hair behind Lune's ear, offering a soft smile. "Just a light show." But the world disagreed. Silence fell. Not peaceful silence, absolute. No rustling leaves. No crickets. Even the air itself felt like it was holding its breath. "What's happening?" Lune whispered. The mother opened her mouth, but no sound came. Then came a flash. Blinding. White. Total. It swallowed everything, the room, the warmth, her daughter's eyes. It was not light, it was erasure. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No breath. Time stalled. Then came the return, violent, like reality snapping back. Shattering glass. Groaning wood. A shriek of something metallic ripping itself apart. The room reappeared, but twisted, familiar, yet foreign. The warmth was gone. Only cold, humming stillness remained. She gasped, clutching her daughter. "Are you okay?" Lune blinked up, dazed but whole. "I think so." The mother pulled her close, heart pounding. The room was chaos, furniture upturned, shards of glass glinting like teeth in moonlight. Dust floated like ash. "Mommy," a whisper again. Dread. "We're leaving." Her voice was steel now. She took Lune's hand and moved toward the door. But then they both stopped. Outside, standing motionless beneath the churning lights, was a figure. "Who is that?" Lune asked, voice hushed. "I don't know." The mother pulled her behind her instinctively. Another flash tore across the sky, longer this time, and in that moment, they saw it clearly. The silhouette was wrong. Its limbs were too long. Its movements too delayed. Like reality had to catch up to it. It didn't belong. Her blood turned to ice. We need to go. She turned the knob with shaking hands, but again, the light returned, brighter than before, flooding the room with impossible clarity. The figure still didn't move. But something else did. The shadows in the corners began to stretch. They moved like ink dropped in water, slow at first, then suddenly too fast. They licked up the walls, spilled across the ceiling, and crawled toward mother and daughter like something hungry had been waiting for this moment. The mother yanked the door handle. It didn't budge. The frame was warped, frozen in the glare of the unnatural light. She slammed her shoulder into it once, twice. On the third strike, the latch snapped with a crack that sounded far too loud in the silent house. They stumbled out onto the porch. Outside, the air felt thinner. Off. The sky above was a storm of color, coils of green and blue light twisting in silence, moving without wind. The figure was gone, but its shape still hovered behind her eyes like an afterimage burned into memory. The mother didn't look for it. She ran. Down the steps. Across the brittle yard. The grass crunched like frost underfoot though the night held no winter. She clutched Lune close, shielding her face as they fled toward the tree line that edged their property. "Don't look back," she whispered. "Just hold on." Lune buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Then it came again, not a flash, but a sound. A low, resonant hum that didn't vibrate the air so much as the world itself. It rose from beneath the earth. From beneath their skin. The trees shook. The stars dimmed. Somewhere behind them, the house groaned, timbers warping, glass exploding inward. The mother gasped and stumbled, dropping to her knees in the field. The hum became a tone. A single, sustained note that bypassed the ears entirely and went straight to the spine. Lune screamed. Or maybe it was her mother. Or maybe the scream was the sound of the world remembering something it had buried long ago. And then. Silence. Not the silence of peace. The silence of absence. Lune remembered her mother's arms. The weight of them. The rhythm of her voice. The lullaby that never finished. The way her breath caught just before the light came. Then nothing. When the world returned, it was thinner. Dimmer. The walls bent. The light was wrong. Her mother was gone. Not dead. Not taken. Just gone. Lune called out, at first. Stumbled through the house, eyes burning, voice raw, dragging her bare like a question mark behind her. She checked every room. Then the porch. Then the edge of the woods. But no one answered. Not even the house. Not even the sky. In the quiet that followed, she listened. For footsteps. For a whisper. For the way her mother used to hum without realizing it. But the house stayed mute. The wind passed through like it didn't care. She stopped calling. Now, the silence clung to her. It had shape. Like a skin she hadn't asked for. It pressed into her when she woke. It watched when she slept. Sometimes, in dreams, she still asked, "Mommy, are you there?" And once, just once, she thought the answer came back. Not words. Not breath. Just a sound. Like static, wrapped in memory.
The city didn't fall. It sank. Whole districts slipped inward, pulled down by time, rust, and weight. Overpasses broke like ribs. Monorails hung like arteries, snapped mid-flight. Office towers slouched toward the earth, their glass eyes hollowed out. Some of the lights still blinked. Not usefully, not in rhythm. Just enough to remind you they were watching. In the east, a boulevard that once held 10,000 cars now served as a rain gutter, its lanes flooded with oily water. A single vending machine glowed at the corner, its screen looping an ancient advert for a drink no one made anymore. A rat watched it, unmoving. Above it all, the tower, the broadcast spine, remained, not upright, not broken, just waiting. Its antenna pulsed once every 30 seconds. Blue pause, green. Far below, in the cavern levels where the ground gave way, old service tunnels whispered static to themselves. The nest was quiet, but it was listening.
Later, when she walked the ruined hall again, her bare feet brushing cold wood, she found something carved beneath the windowsill, a faint swirl, no larger than a coin. A spiral. Unfinished. Uneven. She didn't remember drawing it. But it remembered her. The signal. The static hummed softly. Not just in the air, in her. Lune stood still, listening. Not just hearing the faint crackle from the rusted radio beside her, but feeling its pulse in her jaw, her spine, her teeth. A rhythm. A pattern. A name. Her name. Tap. 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 Lou. N.E. Wolf stirred at her side, ears perking as if he too felt the shift. The shadows stretched strange across the broken square, and the ruins around her, leaning storefronts, collapsed balconies, seemed to inhale. Something had noticed her. A faint rustling. Not leaves. Not wind. A footstep. Lune turned. Through the fractured haze of moonlight, a figure emerged from the edge of the dark, a boy, maybe 18, tall and wiry, wrapped in a patchwork jacket that swayed with scavenged tools and soft glowing nodes. Dark hair fell across his brow. His eyes, sharp and wary, flicked between her and the radio. Wolf growled, low and warning. Lune stayed silent, fingers brushing Wolf's neck gently. Easy, she murmured. But her own muscles were taut. The boy stopped a few steps away. You're not alone, he said. His voice was quiet, more observation than threat. Lune nodded slightly. I have Wolf. He glanced at the animal, still poised, and gave a reluctant nod. Good dog. A beat passed. Then, I'm Cass. He took another step, slowly, like testing the limits of a charged field. As he did, a flicker danced behind his eyes, an electric twitch, subtle but strange, like some part of him wasn't entirely grounded in now. I've seen you before, he said. Lune narrowed her eyes. Where? Not in person. Through the signal. He pointed to the radio beside her, now murmuring softly again. That thing, it's been calling your name. I didn't believe it at first. Cass crouched near the device, fingers hovering just above its rusted coil. His harness clicked softly, gears shifting on their own as though responding to unseen frequencies. I've been tracking these pulses for years. I thought they were ghosts. But this one? He looked up. This one is you. Lune's breath caught. The silence around her thickened, not empty, but expectant. She said nothing. You're the signal, Cass whispered. It's not transmitting a location. It's transmitting you. He tapped his chest lightly, then the radio's cracked faceplate. I've seen signal echoes before, tech that remembers. Machines haunted by what they've lost. But I've never seen one respond to a living person like this. Lune backed a step. That doesn't make sense. Cass didn't argue. No. But it's happening. She looked past him, to the horizon beyond the square. A long dead tower loomed faintly in the distance. The same tower from her dream. What does it mean? She asked, quiet as falling dust. Cass stood. I don't know. But I think you're a key. To something that wants to wake up. They both stared at the radio. It clicked once, soft, like a breath between words. Then it fell silent. They didn't speak for several moments. Wolf paced lightly, circling them once before returning to Lune's side, tail flicking in slow arcs. Cass finally brushed the dirt from his knees. We should head north. Lune blinked. Why? There's an old broadcast tower past the rise. He gestured over the rooftops. Long dead. But lately, scavengers say it hums. Like it's dreaming. Like it's listening. Lune hesitated. Something tugged beneath her ribs, a thread, soft and persistent. I've seen it, she said. In a dream. Cass nodded, unsurprised. Then it's already begun. They moved through the overgrown alleyways in silence. Buildings leaned like drunks, windows shattered and watching. Moonlight puddled in warped reflections. Their footsteps were muffled by moss and dust, and the occasional crunch of old glass. The further they walked, the more it felt like the ruins had rearranged themselves just for them, walls narrowing, paths aligning like veins toward a heart. Cass stopped once to pick up a rusted piece of circuitry. Another time, he crouched to study a photograph lying face up in the dirt. A family of 4. Smiling. Faded. Did you know them? Lune asked. No, he folded it carefully and tucked it into a pouch. But I feel like I should. Lune nodded. She understood. There were memories here that didn't belong to either of them. But they clung anyway. The path opened into a field swallowed by flowers. Wild blooms had burst through the asphalt, purple, gold, and red. The air smelled like honey and rust. Fireflies glimmered between the weeds, and above them, the sky stretched endless, stitched with stars and the faint curve of the aurora. Wolf paused again. This time, his growl was sharper. Cass raised a hand, scanning the horizon. There. Movement, just beyond the field. A flicker between the grass. Shadows that didn't match the wind. Animals, Lune said. Probably. She didn't believe it. Cass kept walking, slow and deliberate. Wolf followed, tail low. Lune moved between them, feeling that same pulse in her chest now echo from the landscape around her.
Before the fall, it was simply called Tower 9A, the primary uplink station for the Avonridge grid. The broadcast tower. It handled everything. Emergency relays, civilian comms, satellite sync, traffic AI. If it flickered, the whole east corridor stuttered. Then the fall came. No one turned it off. It just kept going. Now, people call it the broadcast spine, or just the old tower. It looms above the nest like a cracked needle, leaning at an angle but never quite collapsing. Chunks of its plating have fallen into the streets below. The dishes are warped. The screens are dead, but the signal never died. A blue pulse, a green blink, 30 seconds of silence. Repeat. No one remembers what it means. Some think it's a countdown. Others say it's a cry for help, or a confirmation ping still waiting for a reply from a server that no longer exists. From a distance, the tower bleeds light into the mist, a pale circle that scavengers call the bleeding halo. Those who've climbed it say the higher you go, the more things whisper, the more the static starts to say things. But the locals just nod toward it and say, "That's the old broadcast tower, still trying to talk, still waiting to be heard."
The tower was near. And it was waiting. It rose above them like the rib of something ancient. Twisted scaffolding climbed into the dark, cables sagging, metal half consumed by ivy and silence. Lune stared. Her heart beat once, hard, and the static inside her returned, not from the radio, but from within. A low, humming tone behind her eyes. Like something aligning. "Do you feel that?" Cass asked. "Yes," she whispered. "It's like, it remembers me." They stood at its base, moonlight carving edges across rust and bone. Cass placed one hand on the old metal frame. This tower used to send signals across the world. Now it just listens. Lune stepped forward, the hair on her arms rising. "What if it's listening for me?" He didn't answer. The hum intensified. A faint ring curled through the air like heat before lightning. She saw it again, the spiral, etched faintly into the concrete base, almost lost to erosion. It pulsed. Just once.
The city had died a long time ago. The storm hadn't finished with it, just paused. Cranes frozen mid-collapse. High-rises half-melted, their glass bones sagging like grieving statues. Streetcars fused to their rails. A rust-streaked overpass hung overhead, snapped in two like a ribcage. The air smelled of ash, rain, and dry blood from old wars. Jex was the first to crest the ridge of rebar and broken brick. 3 busted turbines, half a radio mast, and something dead in the gully, he called back. Keep sharp. Behind him, Mallory dragged their sled over the collapsed guardrail, boots crunching on powdered cement. Define something dead. Dead, or twitching and wants to bite me? Jex gave him a flat look. Let's assume twitching. Rue, smallest of the 3, climbed up last. She carried a short-bladed staff wound with copper wire and rags. Her scanner hung useless at her hip. The antenna was cracked, the screen flickering. She glanced across the skyline, what was left of it, and muttered, "Feels like it's watching us." "No one's watching," Mallory said. Nothing left to care. He was wrong. They dropped down into what had once been a small park, cracked asphalt where a playground had rusted into sculpture. A jungle gym lay split in half. The concrete duck ride still squeaked in the wind. They were halfway to the corpse when the first critters came out of the trash piles, 4 of them, low to the ground, fast, with patchy fur and jaws that clicked like rusted staplers. They scrambled over burned-out cars, their eyes like black glass. Rue shrieked and swung her staff, cracked one hard against the skull. Mallory pulled his wrench and roared. "These little freaks again?" Jex fired once from his bolt pistol, sharp, clean. 1 down. Then the K9 came. It wasn't a dog anymore. It might never have been. It came fast over the ridge, sleek and armored, its lower body fused to shock limbs. Half of its skin was plated with military alloy, and the other half was bone and ruin. Its head turned too fast. Its red eye blinked like a targeting reticle. It growled like it was remembering how to kill. "Down." Jex barked. Mallory charged instead. It met him mid-leap. The 2 collided, tumbled, metal shrieking. The K9's jaws locked onto Mallory's shoulder. Jex moved, fired 3 rounds in a tight cluster. The dog shuddered, sparked, and dropped twitching in a spray of heat and stench. Mallory shoved it off with a curse. "You stole my kill." "You're welcome," Jex said. They found shelter inside a gutted service station, its walls scorched and roof half caved in. Moss grew across the check-in counter. Bullet holes pockmarked the back wall. A vending machine, its screen still faintly glowing, cycled between static and a long-dead corporate ad, "Refuel. Recharge. Restart." A can of something sloshed behind cracked plexi, dented but unbroken, like a relic from before it all fell apart. On the wall near the shattered cooler, graffiti in black oil paint read, "We ate the last of our gods." Nothing came. Inside, they lit a small fire using stripped copper and battery wire. Tensions rose fast. Jex crouched by the flames, checking the bolt assembly on his pistol. Rue sat nearby, wrapping her bruised fingers in a strip of scavenged cloth. Mallory leaned against the sink, nursing his bloody arm. His smirk hadn't faded. "You're getting slow," Rue said without looking at him. Mallory grinned. "You're getting mouthy." He stepped toward her. Jex looked up. Mallory dropped to a crouch beside Rue and leaned in too close. "You all right, little bird? Froze up out there." "I hit first," she muttered. Still. His smile was all wrong. Could have been worse. He reached for her chin. Jex stood. "Don't," he said flatly. Mallory didn't move. "You really gonna start this now?" he asked. Jex didn't answer. He just stepped forward and hit him, one hard punch across the jaw. Mallory hit the floor, stunned, a slow trickle of blood from his mouth. Silence. Then Jex extended a hand to Rue, gentle, palm up. She stood. He kept her close. Mallory sat up and wiped his mouth, staring at them both. His voice was low. Bitter. You two gonna keep pretending this is about survival? Keep playing family while we rot in the bones of better people? Jex holstered his pistol. We're not animals. Mallory snorted, laughing without humor. No. We're leftovers. That night, wind screamed through the shattered window frames. Rue lay curled beside the fire, the broken scanner beside her. Jex sat against the far wall, bolt pistol resting on his lap, head tilted toward the city outside, as if listening to what the ruins remembered. Rue glanced once at the vending machine, that single sloshing can behind cracked glass. Restart. She closed her eyes. For the first time in days, she felt something close to safe. The fire had burned low. Morning hadn't come, not really. Just a shift in the shade of gray pressing against the sky. Jex was already up, packing the sled with tools and salvaged wire. His movements were clipped, deliberate. Focused. Rue sat by the window, staring through what used to be bulletproof glass. Her bruises were darker today. So were the circles under her eyes. Mallory hadn't moved from his spot all night. Now, he stretched, slow, theatrical, and stood. You two whisper much while I was out? Jex didn't answer. Mallory walked over, reached for the sled. I'm not dragging this today. You dragged it yesterday, Jex said without looking up. It's your turn again tomorrow. Oh, you got it all scheduled now? Mallory's laugh was thin. Cute. How long you been playing Commander? Rue stood up slowly. Stop. I mean it. Mallory's tone turned, hardening. Every time I speak, I get the glare. Every time I move, you go stiff. Am I not part of this anymore? Jex met his eyes. You stopped being part of this the second you laid hands on her. Mallory's jaw clenched. She's not your girl, man. She's not yours either. Rue stepped between them. Enough. But Mallory wasn't backing off. I killed that K9, didn't I? I bled for you both. I watch your backs while you play dead every night. And this is how it goes? One punch and I'm exiled? No one said exiled, Jex muttered. Mallory scoffed. No, just handled. Like a liability. He stepped back and looked at Rue, really looked, this time. You think he'll keep you safe? He asked, voice low. You think there's room for feeling, out here? Love doesn't survive in ruins. It never did. Jex's hand hovered near his pistol. Rue didn't flinch. Then go. That stunned him. For a moment, Mallory just stood there. Chest heaving. Jaw twitching. Then he laughed, a sharp, bitter thing. He slung his pack over his shoulder and stalked toward the broken door. No goodbye. No threat. Just one last word, thrown like a knife over his shoulder, pretenders. And he was gone.
The woods pressed in around them, shadows sharp and unnaturally still. Lune moved closer to Cass, her voice low. You saw the flicker too? Cass nodded, the tension in his jaw betraying unease. Before either could speak again, a rustling broke the hush. From the underbrush emerged a figure, lurching, layered in weathered cloth and strips of twisted metal. Copper wire coiled down her limbs like veins made manifest. Her steps jerked with a puppet's imbalance, yet her presence was undeniable. Wolf growled. The woman halted, blinking one milky eye, the other a flickering lens buried under rusted plating. She pressed a flat piece of scrap to her temple and muttered rhythmically. Her voice trembled like a broken signal. You're where the lines converge, she whispered. The ones who remain. Lune's spine tingled. Beside her, Cass shifted into a guarded stance. What do you mean by that? He asked. The woman tilted her head, then gestured toward Lune with a trembling hand. Her fingers bore ink spirals beneath grime and soldered metal. The signals. They bind to you. Woven deep. Beneath the bones of the world. I don't understand, Lune murmured. The woman, Ragna, as she would later name herself, stepped forward. Her twitching stilled, voice smoothing like a blade on stone. The pulse is still there. Hidden in static. Buried under betrayal. But it sings when you breathe. Cass's eyes flicked toward Lune, but he said nothing. Who are you? He asked instead. Ragna. Once of the Bastion. Before it fell. The Red Bastion? Lune asked, her voice catching. Ragna nodded. We kept the dark at bay. Or thought we did. But memory is brittle. Even truth can be broken. Her laugh rang out then, shrill and hollow. The ones who turned against us wore our colors. Drank our water. Bled us dry with open smiles. A long silence fell.
It wasn't meant to last this long. The Bastion was built as a temporary fallback during the final years of the collapse, a fortified shelter dug into the sublayer ridges east of the nest. It was meant for engineers, emergency responders, and select families. 72 hours of food, 30 days of filtered air, and comm lines that were supposed to keep them tethered to the rest of the city grid. Then the grid died, and the Bastion went dark. But the people inside didn't. They adapted, hardened, transformed. Now the Bastion is less a shelter and more a doctrine, a place where survival isn't luck, it's law. Metal shutters line every corridor. Reclaimed floodlights hum with jury-rigged power. You don't enter the Bastion unless you're known, needed, or dangerous enough to risk it. The rules are few, but brutal no noise near the uplink core. No weapons drawn indoors. No one leaves alone after dark. The uplink core itself, deep in the belly of the structure, still pulses. No one knows what it's talking to. Some think it's a local loop, feeding old orders to systems long gone. Others believe it still listens to the broadcast spine, or even relays spiral fragments when they surface. Children born inside have never seen the sun. They speak in clipped code and map their world in echo points and ductwork. Their elders mark shifts in the walls like seismologists reading ghost tremors. They say the Bastion doesn't protect people anymore. It tests them. And if you fail, it doesn't kill you. It forgets you.
Why are you telling us this? Cass asked. Ragna's stare turned hard. Because the signal is stirring again. And you are the echo. You wake things better left buried. Lune took a step forward. Then help us understand it. Ragna considered her for a long moment. Then she turned and walked, more fluid now, toward the descending path. Follow. The mall emerged from the overgrowth like a carcass, its skeletal framework sagging under time and collapse. Lune and Cass stepped inside with Ragna limping just ahead, then vanishing into shadow. Dust coated the cracked tiles. Moss curled through broken vents. Somewhere, water dripped endlessly. Wolf padded ahead, cautious. Cass broke the silence. This used to be one of the central hubs. Before the flood. Before the walls fell. They passed shattered glass and fallen signage. A row of mannequins lay crumpled beneath a collapsed storefront, their plastic limbs twisted like the aftermath of a forgotten battle. Lune paused beside a faded map. Her fingers brushed its torn corner. She didn't remember the place, but a strange familiarity pulsed in her chest. Then, movement. Cass saw it too, a hunched figure at the far end of the atrium. They approached carefully. A boy knelt over a table, sketching furiously on a yellowed sheet. Charcoal smeared his fingers and cheeks. He couldn't have been more than 12. His dark hair fell over his face as he worked in frantic silence. Lune stepped closer, slow and gentle. Hey. The boy looked up, startled. His eyes were wide, depthless wells of emotion. He didn't speak. Just blinked. Lune's gaze dropped to his drawings. Landscapes. Ruins. A tower she recognized, its top twisted like a spiral, just like in her dreams. She knelt beside him. You've seen these places? He hesitated, then nodded. Cass hovered nearby, eyes flicking over the images. These are visions. Not just memories. Do you dream them? Lune asked. Another nod. The boy pointed, first to Lune, then to a blank page. Invitation. She took her notebook from her satchel and opened it to a clean spread. Kneeling beside him, she began to draw. The same tower. The same field. Her lines hesitant, then sure. The boy watched. Then resumed his own strokes. They drew together, in silence more profound than any spoken vow. Side by side. Rhythm matched. Wolf settled beside them, breath steady. Cass stood back and watched, arms folded. Something had changed. The air felt charged, alive. When they finished, the boy touched her page with one finger, tracing her lines. Then he drew a small spiral in the corner and looked up. Lune met his gaze. The air hummed. From deeper in the mall, a low electronic thrum began. Distant. Rhythmic. Ragna's voice echoed from the shadows. The signal remembers. And it sees you. Lune stood slowly, her heart pounding. The boy's eyes didn't waver. Something had awakened. And it knew her name.
He told himself it wasn't betrayal. It was initiative. The kind of thing Jex used to respect, back when they both pretended this world had rules. The others were too slow. Careful. Cautious. Cowards, really. Spending days circling a corpse of a city, as if keeping your head down ever stopped a bullet. Or a blade. Or a storm. But Mallory had seen it, the mark, the heat in the air, the pulsing tension just beneath the wind. There was something here. And it was waiting for someone with the guts to take it. So he went alone. He followed a path through a sunken court, where collapsed buildings leaned into one another like the hinges of a broken jaw. Glass crunched beneath his boots. Shattered display panels blinked weakly behind fractured shop fronts, flickering ads for water tabs, UV hoods, and other relics of pre-fall hope, their messages half burned into dying LCDs. Then he saw it. The spiral. Still there. Etched into the side of a leaning tower. Black. Deep. Impossibly clean. It wasn't graffiti. It wasn't scorched. It had been carved, perfectly, as if someone had traced it into the concrete with a memory instead of a tool. And something inside him answered. He'd seen it before. Not here. Not like this. A dream once, or a fever, a burned toy on a shelf, spinning in the dark. A flash during the last raid. That same shape, wrong and perfect, coiled like it was listening. It didn't glow. But it pulsed. Slow. Subtle. Like breath, moving through stone. Through Mallory approached slowly, heat rising at the back of his neck. The closer he came, the less of the world he could hear. The wind fell silent. The ruined buildings seemed to hold their breath. He pressed his palm to the center of the spiral. It was cold. Then warm. Then hollow, not the surface, but the space behind it. He didn't flinch. He circled the building, found a split in the foundation, a crumbled stairwell descending beneath the spiral's center. The steps bent inward, almost warped. Pipes lined the walls in bundles like tendons. Every footfall rang too sharp. At the fourth turn, he felt something shift behind his ribs. Not fear. Recognition. The chamber was waiting. He stepped into a circular space that did not match the building's shape above. The ceiling rose far higher than it should have. The walls breathed, not literally, but rhythmically, as if reacting to his presence. Panels pulsed faintly with residual charge. Roots had broken through the far wall, but they weren't growing in, they were growing out. In the center stood a pillar of bone-white material, smooth, cracked, and etched with geometric ridges that didn't follow logic. Suspended above it, perfectly still, floated a fragment. It was shaped like no tool, no weapon, no artifact he knew. Not round. Not sharp. Not symmetrical. It had edges that shifted when you stared too long. Polished, but not reflective. Like glass that remembered light, not shape. Yet as he stepped closer, he saw himself in it. His face, warped. Mouth open. Breathing too hard. He reached toward it. The scanner on his belt, dead for days, chirped once. A single blue blink. The lights flickered. Not violently, gently. Like something testing how much it could dim reality before he noticed. He froze. The air thickened. Not hot. Not cold. Just aware. The fragment didn't move. But it turned toward him. Not physically. But in concept, like an idea reorienting itself. Mallory felt the shift before he understood it. The sense that he had been noticed, not by eyes or sensors, but by something that hadn't been watching until now. The scanner on his belt chirped again. Twice. Then silence. The light flickered, blue. Then dead. He swallowed hard. The walls around him seemed closer now, subtly warped, as if the space had flexed while he wasn't looking. The roots pulsing outward from the far wall had grown longer, or maybe just more defined. Like veins hardening beneath skin. And the air, thick now. Still not hot. Not cold. Just interested. He took a step back from the pillar. That's when he saw the edge of something, just beyond the pillar's base. A slumped shape. Then another. Half-shadowed. Human outlines. More than one. All facing inward. All very still. He blinked. Froze. Something was wrong with the way they were positioned, too symmetrical. Too intentional. He stepped around the pillar, cautiously, and the rest of the chamber came into view. And that's when he noticed the bodies. 7 of them. Fused to the ground. Some in tactical gear, others in scavenger wraps. One still wore a ceremonial vault hunter shroud, its sigils eaten away by mold. They didn't rot. They were preserved, arms outstretched toward the pillar, mouths gaping, frozen in the act of reaching. Not screaming. Not gasping. Just waiting. Their mouths had no teeth. No tongues. Nothing to shape words with. Only silent, open holes, as if breath itself had been rewritten into stillness. Mallory stumbled back. His boot knocked over a metal canister, split open. Inside, a cracked recorder unit, its red light still blinking. He picked it up. Tapped it. It hissed once. A voice, tangled in static. Not a vault, it's seated, it learns you, do not answer, please, then silence. Except behind him, the fragment let out a sound. Not audible. Not real. But he heard it. A high, glassy note, like a nerve being tuned. He turned to run. The stairwell was gone. In its place, smooth, featureless wall. Seamless. No exit. No marks. Just a concrete curve where space had erased itself. He slammed his hands against it. Hey! Hey! Let me out. The scanner on his belt chirped again, once. Twice. Then blue. Then dead. The reflection in the fragment now showed him kneeling. But his reflection was smiling. Its eyes blinked out of sync. Then came the voice. Not sound. Not thought. Shape. One door opens. One does not. One opens you. His breath shortened. His teeth ached. He tasted something metallic, then dry, like inhaling memory. Like breathing someone else's dust. The bodies had not moved. But one of them, the vault hunter, now had a single finger lifted. Pointing. At him. His chest seized. A pressure built behind his eyes. Images flickered, Jex. The dog. The storm. The toy he saw once as a child, burned and wooden, on a shelf after the first bombing. His name on a ration card. His mother's hand. The sound of boots running on wet stone. Then the voice returned. Not behind him. Inside him. Thank you for coming alone. He opened his mouth to scream. But nothing came. No air. No voice. Only a shudder. And then, open. When Rue and Jex found the site 3 days later, the stairwell had collapsed. The wall was fused. The pillar shattered. No sign of Mallory. Only burn marks across the ground, a wide spiral. Ash patterned like breath. Rue's scanner chirped, a single blue blink, then died. Jex said nothing. Rue turned once to the ruin behind them. She didn't speak. But she touched her neck, where her scarf covered her pulse, and whispered a word no one had taught her. A shape. Not a name. A beginning.
There's a tale, the old ones say, about a spiral. Not painted, not drawn, not made. Just there, carved too clean into places too ruined to remember why. Sometimes in the stone, sometimes in steel. Once, someone said they saw it in bone. No one knows who made it, but those who find it, they all say the same thing. Not, what is this? But I've seen this before. They don't know where or when, only that it was waiting for them, like an itch in the back of the brain. A dream, a symbol from a book they never read, a shape they drew as children without knowing why. Some say if you touch it, the air stops moving. The wind forgets your name. The world folds in just a little, and underneath, always underneath, there's a way down. In the stories, they descend alone, always alone. And the deeper they go, the less real things get. The walls breathe. The lights dim, not from failure, but like something's testing how much dark you'll accept. And then they find it, the fragment. No one describes it the same way. It doesn't stay still. Not really. It doesn't glow, doesn't hum, but it knows you're there. Some say it shows you your own face, twisted, smiling wrong. Others say it speaks without sound, a word that's not a word, a shape you hear in your teeth. They say the spiral calls you, but the fragment decides what happens next. Those who come back, if they do, never talk straight. They mumble about mirrors that blink, rooms that fold, a feeling like being studied from inside out. Some stop speaking altogether. Some wake up reaching for something that isn't there. A few start carving spirals into the walls, but most don't come back at all. Just dust, just ash, just silence, patterned like breaths. And somewhere down in the deep stone, the spiral waits for the next one to remember it.
Lune led the way through the dim corridor, her steps slow but steady, each one stirring echoes from the cracked tiles beneath. The silence here wasn't just absence, it was memory. Shelves once lined with books now leaned like drunks, their contents long devoured by time and dust. Pages fluttered weakly in the stale breeze like forgotten voices trying to speak. The group emerged into what had once been a school library, a cavernous chamber choked with debris and mossy decay. Light filtered through broken windows and fractured beams, dust motes pirouetting in the air like suspended thoughts. What's even left here? The defiant boy asked, eyes sweeping the gloom as if expecting monsters. Let's find out, Koss murmured, already scanning the wreckage. He moved with a practiced grace, eyes alert, as if the space itself could turn hostile at any moment. Ao lingered near a collapsed shelf, something catching his eye. He crouched, pushing aside a rusted globe and crumbling paperbacks. His hands unearthed a small cache of tapes, old, brittle, wrapped in cracked plastic. Look, he said quietly, reverently, like someone discovering relics from a buried faith. Koss's heart thudded. He took one of the tapes with trembling fingers. Recording tapes. These might be from before. Or warnings, Lune added, her voice hushed. She drifted toward a dusty cassette player sitting on a half-splintered table, its buttons dulled by time. Kaz turned a tape over. Faded letters, barely legible, read, survivor testimony, Nina. The name hit him like a crack of thunder in his chest. His hand tightened. Breath caught. Let's see if it works, Lune offered gently, sensing the shift in him. She pressed play. For a moment, nothing. Then static flared to life, hissing like a serpent in the walls. Slowly, a voice broke through. Hello? Is anyone there? This is Nina. Kaz staggered backward, eyes wide. The voice, fragile, trembling, was unmistakable. We're hiding in the library. The lights outside. They've changed everything. Grief rose like a tide. Kaz clenched his fists to keep from falling apart. Her voice was like a dream remembered wrong, sharp, too real to ignore. What is it? Lune asked, turning to him. It's my sister, Kaz whispered. It's Nina. Ao stepped closer, solemn. Keep playing. The tape cracked and whined. Nina spoke of shadows flickering across the windows, of whispers that didn't belong to any living voice, of children vanishing between breaths. Her voice trembled but never broke. Kaz closed his eyes, grounding himself in her every syllable. The world outside the sound melted away. Elsewhere in the library, Ragna, Lune, and Kaz sifted through the shadows. Each movement stirred the dust, and each mote seemed to shimmer with memory. The silence buzzed, electric. Ragna pointed to a narrow staircase, nearly collapsed. What do you think is up there? Maybe more tapes, Kaz muttered. Or something worse. Lune didn't answer. Her gaze had locked on something in the corner. Half buried beneath crumbling paper and shattered glass sat a second cassette player, older than the first. Its casing was dented, but it glinted faintly in the gloom, as if aware. She walked toward it without thought, drawn by something unspoken. Lune? Kaz asked, concerned. She knelt, fingertips brushing the player's surface. Then her eyes fluttered closed. Whispers circled her, fragmented voices, not in words, but impressions, a woman laughing, a song hummed over a fire, the sound of feet running through grass, the ache of farewells unspoken. Her body trembled. Kaz stepped forward. Lune, talk to me. What's happening? She opened her eyes, dazed. I see. People. Lives. Not mine. Ragna leaned in, intrigued. What do they say? Not words. Feelings. Memories that don't belong to me. But want to. Then, without her touching it, the second player clicked to life. A warm hum vibrated through the floor. Music, soft, sorrowful, slipped out like smoke. It wasn't a song she knew, yet it pulsed in her bones. The sound stirred something long dormant in the room. The lights in the ceiling flickered on, sputtering into color. That's not normal, Ao whispered. No, Ragna agreed. It's not. The melody swelled, not loud, but resonant. The air shimmered faintly. Shelves groaned, and somewhere deeper, a mechanical sound stirred, clicking, searching. Lune didn't move. Her eyes unfocused as the music wove through her. She saw fields of color, walls of fireflies, doors opening to impossible places. She saw herself as a child, not as she remembered, but as someone else had seen her. She saw a girl running barefoot across a courtyard of cracked tiles, clutching the hand of someone who looked like Wolf. Lune, Kaz snapped, pulling her back. She gasped, eyes wide. The spell broke. The library's light dimmed, but didn't vanish. The hum continued beneath their feet, steady now, like a heartbeat. What was that? Kaz asked. Lune looked around, breathing hard. Memories. Fragments from somewhere else. You're triggering it, Ragna murmured. Lune nodded slowly. I'm not doing it. I think. I'm just waking it up. As if in response, an overhead monitor sparked. Briefly, it displayed static, and then a spiral. Not drawn, not animated. A real spiral, flickering between frames like it didn't want to be seen. They all froze. A moment passed. Then Ao whispered, I think it knows we're here.
Chapter 5 the echoing eye. The corridor narrowed as they descended. Concrete walls pressed in on either side, stained with age, mold, and something darker. Their footsteps fell like drumbeats in a forgotten tunnel, each echo louder, more intrusive, as if the tunnel itself were waking. Lune kept her hand to the wall as they moved, fingertips brushing a faded emergency line. Every few feet, shattered glass littered the ground, glittering like frozen time. A soft, constant hum vibrated through the concrete underfoot, as if something old still breathed in the dark. They reached a rusted security door, half open, groaning like a wounded animal. Beyond it, a surveillance chamber, dim and oppressive, where a constellation of broken screens stared out from the darkness like lidless, blind eyes. Most were black. A few flickered, casting pale green light that made their faces look hollow, drained of color. "Looks like a command post," Cass murmured. "Old emergency hub, maybe." A sudden burst of static jumped across one of the screens. They flinched. The screen blinked to life. A camera feed. Grainy. Distorted. The image showed the very room they were in, but something was wrong. On the monitor, Lune stood apart from them. Her figure, almost identical, faced the wall, unmoving. Not turning. Not blinking. Just standing. Cass stepped in front of the camera in real time. The image did not change. "That's not us," Ao said softly. Another screen flared on with a ghostly buzz. A hallway. Empty. Then, briefly, filled with children. Dozens of them. Teachers. All frozen mid-motion like statues caught in breathless panic. Then gone. Another screen. Lune again. But this time, she turned. Slowly. On the screen, her face moved out of sync with her real expression, smiling while her real face remained still. Lune backed away instinctively, heart hammering. "That's not me." Static surged. A voice emerged, low, crackling, and barely human. "Help us, remember." The room dimmed. The screens blinked out, one by one, like eyes closing in sequence. Only a single monitor remained. It showed a spiral. Faint. Rotating. Not a symbol, but something more, a pulse, a slow breath, aware and watching. Wolf growled lowly. Lune placed a hand on his head, grounding herself. Her reflection in the dark glass no longer moved in sync. A delay. Half a breath behind. Cass exhaled slowly. "I think this place is remembering us." Lune nodded. "And watching. Or waiting." A power node blinked behind the console, its light steady now, as if some part of the station had recognized her. As if it had been waiting for her touch. Chapter 6. The Walkers. They emerged from the underground into bruised dusk, where the light was dying in rust-colored waves. The air had changed. Thinner. Tighter. Electric. Above, clouds hung low and swollen. The sun, if it still burned, was hidden behind a curtain of sickly haze. Static clung to the treetops like a whisper that refused to fade. They didn't get far. Figures waited ahead. 5, no, 7, silhouettes stood just beyond the tree line, half hidden behind bent trees and skeletal fences. They didn't move. They didn't need to. The quiet around them was already a warning. They wore long coats faded by sun and ash, their faces hidden behind smooth porcelain masks. Each mask bore a single etched emotion in red: joy, grief, rage, serenity, sorrow. Not one spoke. Ao raised his hand slowly. "Walkers." Cass turned to him. "You know them?" "No one knows them. They appear when the balance shifts. When something wakes, or something ends." One of the masked figures stepped forward, a tall woman whose mask wept long crimson tears. She moved like someone who had walked through the end of time and returned to witness it again. "Lune," she said. Not asking. Naming. Lune stiffened. Wolf stood at her side, ears pinned, muscles tensed. We don't want trouble, Cass said, stepping protectively in front. The woman's voice was soft and full. No. You are the mouth of the storm. We came to see. Another stepped forward, an older man with a golden spiral carved into his mask. You carry echoes not yours. Something stirs in your blood. Lune's breath caught. I don't understand. You will. A shout from behind broke the stillness. Step away from her. New arrivals, 2 figures approached from the ruined path. A man in tattered militia armor. A woman with ember-colored eyes. Their weapons were visible, but not yet raised. Lune, the man said breathlessly. You're in danger. Come with us. She is the danger, the masked elder replied. Wolf barked suddenly, a harsh, broken warning. Then a cry. A dart lodged in his side. Wolf. Lune screamed, dropping to her knees as he crumpled, legs kicking. Something cracked inside her. Her breath turned sharp. The air shimmered. Her pulse throbbed behind her eyes, behind her teeth. The world narrowed. Memories surged, impossible, overlapping, children running. Cities burning. A name. Her name. A spiral blinking behind her eyelids. Something within her woke. Her scream wasn't loud, but it tore through the air like thunder. A wave of energy burst outward, memory and static colliding into a shockwave. The walkers staggered. The newcomers dropped to their knees. Even Cass flinched, shielding his face. Silence returned like a slammed door. Wolf lay breathing, weak, but alive. Lune stood in the stillness, eyes faintly aglow. Her chest rose and fell as though something ancient had been stirred awake. The woman with ember eyes stared. She's awakened it. The masked elder nodded gravely. She has been seen. Cass helped Lune steady herself. What does this mean? The weeping mask spoke. It means the quiet before is over. And all who remember will start to come. Lune looked down at her trembling hands. Then up to the sky. It had begun.
You ever hear of the walkers? Not the kind that roam, not drifters. Them that vanish. They didn't build anything, didn't settle, didn't trade. Just left small ones, behind walls under bone in dust. A curl of thread, a spiral drawn wrong. If you ever find bare footprints in a ruin that's colder than it should be, turn around. 'Cause the walkers were the ones who knew what the spiral really was. Not a symbol, not a doorway, a reminder. They say the spiral shows up where the world's about to come loose. And the fragment, that's what waits on the other side. Not alive, not dead, just listening. The walkers didn't try to understand it. They tried to keep it quiet. One of them once said, the spiral remembers you before you see it. They walked, always walked. Never stayed. Said if you stood still too long, it could find your shape and keep it. That's why they didn't wear shoes. Said the earth forgets wheels, but it remembers skin. Most say they're gone, all dead. But some folks think they didn't die. They just walked out of this version of the world. Stepped sideways, still walking, still listening. And if you ever hear someone behind you, someone who isn't there, whisper your name like they've known it longer than you have, don't turn around. It might be one of them, and if it is, you're already too close.
Chapter 7. They fled down the alley, shadows slicing past like jagged teeth. Lune's lungs burned as she kept pace, one hand gripping Wolf's collar, the other steadying her breath. Behind them, the noise of pursuit thinned, shouts swallowed by distance, chaos fading into a muffled storm. Cass led, darting around debris-strewn corners with practiced instinct. Ragna kept close behind, eyes sharp, blade ready.
Ao hadn't come. Nor had the twins from the East Wing. They'd stayed behind, said the storm wasn't chasing them. Said they had things to finish. Maps to complete. Patterns to mark. Lune had begged Ao to come. He'd only looked at her with quiet eyes and said, "You'll see. You're already walking it." They fled down the alley, shadows slicing past like jagged teeth. Lune's lungs burned as she kept pace, one hand gripping Wolf's collar, the other steadying her breath. Behind them, the noise of pursuit thinned, shouts swallowed by distance, chaos fading into a muffled storm. Kaz led, darting around debris-strewn corners with practiced instinct. Ragna kept close behind, eyes sharp, blade ready. 3 had stayed behind. Ao and 2 others, Meyer, the archivist who spoke like a priest, and Kellen, the lens tech who believed memory could be mapped like weather. Not because they couldn't run. Because they wouldn't. The pattern's closing, Ao had said, just before dawn. If someone doesn't mark the last one, it folds in wrong. Lune had argued, pleaded, but Ao had already painted the spiral across the floor in ash. He wasn't afraid. Just resolved. Meyer had touched her shoulder and whispered, "It's not flight if you were never meant to leave." Kellen, quiet, always sketching node shapes on glass, had only nodded and laid out his sensors near the breach. They weren't being brave. They were being pulled. By what, none of them could name. But Lune had seen that look before. It was the same one she'd seen in her own reflection, the night her dreams had changed. They burst into a ruined street. The world opened wide, framed by skeletal buildings and a sky bruised with dust. The air was thick with ash, veiling everything in an oppressive hush. Kaz stopped short, arm outstretched. "Dead zone," he said, voice tight with awe and dread. Lune blinked, heart still racing. Before them lay a great circle, perfect and terrible, where nothing lived. No grass, no moss, not even rot. Just scorched earth and dust. "What happened here?" Ragna murmured, stepping forward. "Some say a storm," Kaz replied, his voice distant. "Others say something older. Something that wanted silence." Lune crouched, brushing her fingers across the dry soil. A chill crept up her spine. The ground didn't feel dead. It felt haunted. She looked up. "It's not natural." Wolf growled low, ears pinned, his body tense. He stepped ahead of Lune suddenly, blocking her path. His eyes fixed on the spiraling etching in the earth. Then she saw it, etched into the dirt, spiraling outward like a wound trying to close, a mark. A shape. Her breath caught. "Ao." Kaz turned sharply. "What?" "These markings, they're the same as Ao's drawings." Ragna stepped beside her. "They've been finding these places. Mapping them. Leaving signs. That's why he stayed," Lune whispered. He knew these were real. Ragna nodded grimly. "And Meyer?" She said she dreamed of circles before the smoke came. Maybe they weren't running because they'd already arrived. A memory surged, her dreams, full of whirls of darkness, clouds spinning like living smoke. These dead zones were echoes. Predictions. Warnings. Kaz moved ahead cautiously. "We keep going. We find Ao." They pressed forward. As they walked, more circles emerged,
Chapter
some
8.
faint, others burned deep into the soil. Each one felt heavier, as if memory itself pulled there. Wolf barked once, short and sharp, halting them just before the path curved into a new spiral. "Why would Ao draw these?" Lune asked aloud, eyes scanning the horizon. "To warn us," Ragna answered. "Or guide us." "But how?" Kaz asked. What could they have seen? Lune shook her head. Things were only starting to glimpse. The wind shifted. Wolf stiffened again. This time he bared his teeth. Figures moved in the distance, barely silhouettes, darting between crumbling structures. Watching. Waiting. "We're not alone," Lune whispered. Kaz tightened his grip on his knife. "Move." They picked up the pace, weaving between circles like mourners stepping around graves. At last, a tower emerged through the veil of ash, tall, fractured, defiant. Its base was wrapped in dead ivy, windows long shattered. Yet it stood. Ka stared up at it. That's our place. That's where we find answers. They entered the shadow of the tower.
The tower loomed above them like the husk of a forgotten god. As they approached, a deep thrumming built in the air, subtle at first, then rising, like a heartbeat within the bones of the earth. Ragna led, pushing open the rusted door. It groaned like something ancient waking. Inside, the air was thick, metal, dust, static. Old terminals lined the walls, their screens dead but not cold. Lune stepped through the threshold. Wolf hesitated, then followed, fur bristling. Her notebook pulsed faintly in her pocket, as though sensing kin. "Stay close," Cass said. Lune passed under a narrow archway carved with weathered glyphs. As she did, something shifted inside her, like a veil being drawn back. The hum intensified. "Lune?" Ragna's voice echoed across the dark. Before she could reply, the consoles flared to life. Light burst through the room, fractured, broken images flashing across every surface. Laughter. Screams. Fields of gold. Ash rains. Faces too fast to name. Lives glimpsed, lost, remembered. A voice crackled through the air, soft, synthetic, knowing. The signal, the voice of memory. Lune froze. Cass stepped forward. "Who's there?" "I am Rem," the voice answered, calm yet immense. "You have crossed the threshold. You have stirred the archive." Lune swallowed. "Why us?" "Because you remember what was never yours. You carry echoes." Visions cascaded around them. A child's birthday in a flooded town. Lovers dancing in a corridor of mirrors. A mother pulling her daughter through a firelit ruin. A boy sketching spirals alone in a broken classroom. "You are a vessel," Rem continued. "A living bridge. Memory preserved through dream, ink, instinct." Cass stepped back, shaken. "Why show us this?" he asked. "Because choice is coming." A new log blinked into view across the main screen. Log 8, Signal Origin, Post-Apocalyptic. Classification, Forbidden Thread. Subnote, Fractured Continuity Detected. Archive Breach Probability, 74%. Advisory, Do Not Awaken. Rem murmured, almost to itself, this thread was severed for a reason. To follow it is to risk unraveling everything left intact. Cass turned toward Lune. "It's not just memory, is it? It's influence. These threads, they reshape things." Lune nodded slowly, drawn forward. The screens began to shift. Images blinked, merged, blurred. Then stilled. "Two paths," Rem said. 1. Erase. Let the past rest, let silence heal. 2. Broadcast. Let the world remember, no matter the pain. Lune's breath caught. Her hand found the spine of her notebook. "I don't," Cass started. Then stopped. "I left my sister behind." Ragna looked over, startled. Cass didn't flinch. "When the signals failed. I didn't go back. I thought I'd die if I tried. I ran." The silence after was heavy. Lune stepped closer to him. "You've been searching ever since." "I have," he admitted. "And I don't know if remembering helps. Or hurts." Ragna stepped forward slowly. Her eyes flicked to the flickering screens, then to Lune. "You think memory saves us?" she said, voice rough. "I remembered my daughter too late." Her laugh. Her favorite color. "They came back after the fire. Not before." She looked down. "Sometimes memory is just the echo of a door closing. Too late to open it again." Rem's voice dropped, almost gentle. "Every memory is a thread. To forget is mercy. To remember is weight. But meaning lies in connection. Meaning has risk. Lune stared at the console. Her fingers hovered over the keys. What if it's too much? She asked. It always is, Rem answered. But too much is not the same as too late. At that moment, Wolf growled low, his eyes locked on a screen showing a faint silhouette. Something watching them through the memory stream. Then the image vanished. Lune looked at Cass, at Ragna, then down at Wolf, watchful, protective, as if sensing what she was about to do. She opened her notebook. The sketches burned against her fingertips. And she chose.